Zoe Gardner, migration policy expert, who we regularly turn to for discussions on this. How are you doing, Zoe?
Hi, Ian. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good as gold at this end. Nice to see you again. Just give us your initial response to what we expect the Home Secretary to announce, which is a raising of the threshold, the amount of money you need to earn before you can even get a visa to come here, and then some business around the dependents, those that you're allowed to bring with you.
Yeah, so this is being billed as a major overhaul of the immigration system. I don't think it really counts as a major overhaul, because the reason why the government gets to set different salary levels for different kinds of jobs of people who are coming into the country is because people's visas to come into the country are sponsored by an employer. So that's really the system that's creating the problems here. What we should have is a true points-based system where people get granted a visa to come to the country based on their skills and their characteristics and their familiarity or connections to the UK, those kind of things. And then their right to be here would be dependent on those characteristics, not dependent on their boss. And the system we have at the moment has the government trying to manage salaries in different parts of the economy because it is granting visas via people's bosses. And that's really the system that needs an overhaul. And then on the other hand, if you look at the family migration proposals, I mean, that just seems cruel and unnecessary. Why should the people who come to our country in order to care for our sick and our elderly relatives be denied the chance to live with their own family members? It seems absolutely heartless. And I don't think it really reflects the priorities of the British people in terms of what we want from our immigration system. And I think it will just make it harder to recruit the care workers that we so desperately need.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly an issue there, and there's arguably going to be a bit of a void before we see whether it's somehow got people who are currently out of work into work, which is loosely, crudely put, the theory behind it. I guess with dependents, though, Zoe, I mean, if you're studying, I don't know, geography at Bromley Polytechnic, I don't think one exists, by the way, but if you were, then you shouldn't have the right to bring your nan with you, though, should you?
No, well, actually, I should mention that nobody ever has the right to bring their nan to the UK, even if, say, they've been working here long term in a high-skilled job, paying huge amounts of tax into our economy. To bring an elder dependent relative to the UK is pretty much totally banned. Nobody's ever got that right. So it's quite strict already. You can bring a spouse or your children if they're under 18. And you have to be able to prove that you have enough money to be able to support people. So poor people are basically excluded from the possibility of living with their family members already. So the system's very tight. To make it tighter seems to be a sort of desperate measure to signal some kind of cruelty towards migrants, rather than, as I say, looking at the system as a whole and the overhaul that it needs as a whole, and also the investment that our care system needs as a whole desperately, money for local authorities to provide that care with decent wages and decent conditions. That's what we actually need to see from the government today, instead of sort of saying to care workers, as I say, people who are going to be caring for my grandma, for your nan, for your granddad, why should they not be allowed to live with their spouse, with their children?
I think most people, to a degree, understand that, we all know, as I said to the panel earlier in the programme, that we all know a family that have gone abroad, have gone to Australia for a year. The whole family go. You don't tend to leave the kids at home when you do that. That'd just be a bit weird. However, on the wider point, Zoe, of simply trying to address the amount of people that are coming to this country, and fantastic that people take up jobs where there are vacancies. But in an ideal world, I'm sure you would agree, despite this being your territory, it would be great if we lived in a world where we had enough qualified people who are already here.
Well, I do agree that it would be much better if the government had provided, say, bursaries for training for key areas of labour shortages. So they do that in Australia. They have, instead of the so-called shortage occupation list that we have here, which is basically just a discount system for employers who want to underpay migrant workers, what they have in Australia is a sort of more holistic way of looking at the needs of their economy and what training needs are coming down the pipeline moment where there are shortages. And so what they try to do is balance both the fact that, of course, economies like ours, we have an aging society, we have huge connections to the world at large. You know, it's normal that there will be migrants coming into the UK and that they're doing these jobs, but also we should have a strategy for training up the population, providing the funding and the resources so that, you know, our young people are also given opportunities to go into these areas of work that, you know, these should be respected areas of work. It's not just care, it's also construction, bricklaying. You know, these are areas of work where we have put them on a shortage occupation list, said to employers, you can bring in workers whose right to be in this country is tied to your goodwill. You can underpay them to boot. And we're not investing in those skills in our society. So it's a totally unbalanced
So that is,
system.
you would agree then that we should, I mean, the idea that we're short of bricklayers is crazy, right? I mean, we should be paying a better rate for the jobs so that young people leaving school say, do you know what, I fancy being in it. It was once a very proud profession. In fact, a much sought after profession as well. And yet we have vacancies now. I mean, that's just all
shades of
shades of
profession. It's something skilled. And one of the issues we have, obviously, is that we're not building enough houses in the first place. And so we need these migrants to come in and bring in the skills we need to build houses. But we also have an issue with the quality of new build houses at the current time, because ever since we've lost the ability to flexibly recruit skilled construction workers from around the EU since the end of freedom of movement, it's been a much clunkier bureaucratic system to bring in the skills we need for that construction work. And these are jobs that require training and that should be respected jobs in our economy. And the government has completely dropped the ball on providing enough people who know how to do that work and build those houses. Sure. Then they create the visa route for foreigners to come in to do it. Thank goodness they come and do it. And then they get demonized today. And the entire narrative of government is we need less of them. Well, that isn't good enough. Those people have come and doing brilliant work for us.
Yep.
We need to have an industry that respects those people. That's what we want from government, not these piecemeal soundbite changes.
Listen, Zoe, it's always great to gauge your view on these things. Thank you, Zoe Gardner, who is, of course, migration policy expert with us here on Talk TV.